Hey everyone, my name is Odazie. Today I'm going to be talking about how you can go from a metric tsunami to actionable insights to simplify your database troubleshooting. So a little bit about me. I'm a technology evangelist at Several Nines, a company that empowers organizations to take control of their data on every environment, giving them a full lifecycle DBaaS experience. I'm also a certified Kubernetes application developer, a certified AWS solution architect, and I'm very much excited to speak at Conf42 Observability this 2024. So here's the agenda for my talk. So we're going to start by discussing the developer dilemma and also limitations of legacy database monitoring tools. And then we'll talk about how you can simplify database troubleshooting with cluster control and look at case study of organizations that are using cluster control to monitor and simplify their database troubleshooting. So is this you? Are you drowning in database metrics? Do you feel like you're not empowered but you're overwhelmed? When issues arise, you have to navigate through multiple tools for database observability. This is because of the limitation of legacy database monitoring tools. So here first, the major limitation is graph overload. Here, these tools have been able to capture a lot of metrics and data from system operations and database operations. They've also been able to visualize it, right, in beautiful graphs. But then again, as developers who control much of the environment today, right, most developers don't understand most of the metrics, right, they are being given. They just want simplified, actionable insights, right, actionable metrics, what they really need to solve their problem as at that time. And also limited DB support. So you use a tool to monitor your database, right, your Postgres database. But then again, most organizations don't use just one database, right? So then again, you need another tool for MySQL. You use Redis, you need another tool for Redis, or you use so many other databases. Yeah, there are a lot of databases around for specific purpose, and most organizations use diverse database environments. So you're stuck with the using of multiple tools, which brings about cognitive overload, right? Reduces developer productivity. And another major limitation is visibility without action. So yes, that is the default, right? Monitoring. But then again, beyond monitoring, beyond observability, you need to be able to like take actions and like resolve the issue, right? So most of these tools just offer that monitoring, right? The legacy tools offer the monitoring, which makes it that you have to like go implement either manual intervention or using a different tool altogether, which brings about cognitive overload. And so, yeah, if you're tired of the limitations of these legacy tools, you can try cluster control, and that's what we're going to look at in this talk. So next, simplifying database troubleshooting with cluster control. So cluster control empowers organizations to standardize the full life cycle operations of their databases, right? It's self-hosted, offers a community version that's free forever, and supports most open source and proprietary databases. You remember what I talked about, having diverse database environments, right? So with cluster control, you get Redis, you'll be able to monitor Redis, you'll be able to monitor Postgres, MySQL, Galera, and several other databases, and also proprietary databases like MySQL Server. Also, you get a centralized monitoring. You're able to see everything on our environment, and it supports various tooling. You can use Terraform to orchestrate cluster control and use Ansible and Puppet. So observability with cluster control. So just like I talked about in the previous slide, holistic dashboards, performance monitoring, operational reports, fraud detection query, load balancer monitoring, and activity center. So let's look at each of them more in-depthly. So holistic dashboard. So with cluster control, you can view your database cluster, right? Even if it's in a multi-cloud environment, you can see metrics, right? So from your database cluster, and not just metrics, right? But metrics you need, right? Not just graphs, but graphs you need, graphs that are important, simplified, and you'll be able to track queries and statements, and also gives you server level metrics from network to input and output operations and uptime of your server, right, that hosts your database. And also load balancer monitoring. This feature is what many monitoring tools don't offer, right? So they give you monitoring and observability on your database nodes. But then again, in today you rarely see just one database instance, right? You see multiple database instances. And how will you like know what's happening, right? You use a load balancer, you don't know what's happening in your load balancer, right? So that load balancer monitoring is very essential to be able to see traffic distribution, to see response time, right? Throughput, latency, and all other features, right? All of that necessary metrics and necessary statistics, right? In order to keep your database well performing and in order to enhance uptime, right? Performance monitoring. So this is a very key feature that some of these monitoring tools offer, right? So they advise you on cluster control, offers advisors to advise you containing status and justification. So like something happens, right? You get an advice is sent to you, right? With, okay, this is what happened, right? This is what you should do, and this is why you should do this, right? Also database growth, right? DB growth, to be able to see the growth of your database and tables over time, right? On a daily basis, you see, okay, is this database is growing more than the other, in order to take actions or know what is happening, because the entire idea of observability is to know what's happening in your environment. And also database variables, to know the configuration of your database, transaction deadlocks, it's a database, right? Handles transactions, deadlocks do happen. So in order to view that, then query monitoring. This is very important and very essential, because like queries are how we interact with databases, right? And for query monitoring, with cluster control, you get to see top queries, right? Ordered by occurrence or execution time. You know which query is the slowest, which query is most common, depends on how you want to configure. And also some queries do long, some work, when I say it's possible for a query not to be well written, right? It happens more than often, or not to be optimized, right? So, you get to see, right, which query is an outlier, right, are taking longer than normal to run. You get a notification, you get an advice on that. And database connections, right, to know the processes and connections of your database. And the monitoring agents, right? You install monitoring agents in order to take these metrics, to take this data. And cluster control uses Prometheus, which gives you that will give you the ability to customize, right? And also build out. Let's say you want to build an external. You want to build another dashboard, right, for a particular metrics that's not covered, right, or for a particular need. You can plug in Grafana and build out the dashboard on that. So fault detection and response, I think you get the idea already, right? In real time, you get notification of what's happening, right? This happened, so an advice or an alarm, that what you need to do, right? Action recommendation, analysis, right? On your database, you can see from this screenshot, alarm details. And cluster control also handles recovery, right? I talked about the limitation of legacy monitoring tools. So this is a key feature in the sense that cluster control handles the recovery for you, in the sense that, okay, with the legacy monitoring tools, you can say, okay, this node is down, this database instance is down, and then you have to go and bring it back, or you have to go and restart the node or rebuild the node. Or let's say there is a replication, right, and the replica node is broken, right? So when that breaks, you have to go and manually change that, right? So with cluster control, there's automatic failover. You have the ability to rebuild your nodes, right, directly from the cluster control dashboard. And also it's self-healing, in the sense of that if you have a cluster and you have nodes, the automatically failover, you have the ability to heal your cluster in case of, okay, during installation or during upgrades, right, there was some dependency mishaps, right? So cluster control can resolve those kind of issues in order to make sure your database is always up. And if you choose to manually intervene, right, or manually do changes, make changes, you can also schedule maintenance, right? Schedule maintenance and manually make changes and like recover your cluster, maybe through backups, right? Or however the situation may be. And also scaling, you can horizontally scale your database, right? Just from the cluster control dashboard. So in the sense that you don't need to you bring in another tool or have to like as a developer or have to go, or let's say you have a DBA in your team, an activity center, right? So you see all alarms, right? You see all logs, you get all notifications. You can integrate your notifications with Slack, you can integrate with Odazie, you can integrate with any incident management tool you use, right? Very well books. Let's say you perform a recovery with cluster control, you perform an action cluster control, you build a node, you can see all that action, right? And also with logs, you can see logs, audit logs too, right? To know who performed an action. Because someone, like if many people can have, you can create users and different users to your cluster control environment so that have access, they can be able to make changes. And it gives you a virtual DBA experience, which makes you to deploy faster and move faster and resolve issues faster, right? Then operational reports. This is very important, right? So let's say you go over the weekend and you're back from the weekend. Let's say a long weekend, right? And you're back from the weekend and you want to get started working, right? You can easily create an operational report, right? Based on database availability, system report or backup report, and then okay, you see over time, right? I will do a demo and show you this practically, right? How you can create this and view it. You see over time how cluster control shows your database at each certain time. Let's say something occurred with recommendation of recovery actions to carry out, right? So different types of reports, from incident report, error reports, backup reports, availability reports, and that gives you assurance that you're starting your day, you know what happened right over time. Let's say going on like the example of weekend going on weekend, right? And these reports can also be shared, they can be emailed, and all this gives you that assurance that your database is well performing, your database is it's up, right, and well performing, and you're sure and you're confident that you're giving your customers the best service possible with less time, right, with less cognitive load, with less manual intervention, with less cost, right, and you get better customer satisfaction and also developer satisfaction, developer productivity. So now we'll go into a live demo and just see how cluster control can help you observe your cluster and simplify database troubleshooting. So here I have a cluster control environment, right? So from the onset, you get a cluster overview, a status overview. So you see all the nodes, right? So I have two database clusters here, of course, SQL and MySQL Galera cluster. So I can see these two clusters have 17 nodes, right? So I can see, okay, this is a Galera node, this is a primary node. I can also see, okay, this is the Prometheus node. Then then the next node I can see this is the load balancer, right? So guys, from the onset, right, you get that full single pane of glass overview of all your clusters, right? That's cluster control it manages. So you can choose to like deploy a new cluster. You can import a cluster, right? For this environment, I've imported like these two clusters. So I will go into these clusters individually, right? And show you how cluster control, like all the features I talked about before this demo. So let's go into the Galera cluster. So I click, okay, yeah, I'm in the Galera cluster. So yeah, I'm in the Galera cluster. I can see the system overview, right? So what operating system is this? Is cluster control running on? I can see it's running on Rocky, Linux. I can see the 4 cores. I can look at each Galera node, right? I can see, okay, this Galera node has 2 cores, with total RAM of approximately 4 gig. It's been running It's been up and running for 3 days. I can see the CPU usage. I can see the ideal times, the network usage. Okay, this there was more network usage. I can see the disk input and output, right? I can also go into each of these, right, and zoom in. And when I zoom in, I don't know if you noticed, all the other graphs, right, zooms in with respect to this view, right, this timeline, right. Then also I can sort these metrics over time, right. So I can come, I put the date range. So I want to see the metrics from 15 minutes ago. I can sort that. I don't want to see the metrics for the last 7 days. But this database has already this course has only been up for 3 days, right? So you can see it starts just on the 27th. So you get to see like an overview on what is necessary, right? Then you can go in and see for the load balancer, right? And also, aside from the system overview, you can also look at, okay, the MySQL server specific data, right? So you can see the queries, you can see the queries that are being run, the connection usage, right? You can see also this is sort over the last 7 days, so I can put it to 1 hour. Okay, there are other metrics, right? Other dashboards I can also look at that gives me a complete overview of my cluster. And I can go into the nodes. I can see all the nodes in the cluster, right? I can see the Prometheus node, the Proxy SQL node. Then I can click on it and get an overview of the request, right? Just like we talked about, I talked about load balancer monitoring. You can see that only one of the three nodes are selected to be writes, and you can see, okay, then all nodes receive reads combined with the writer and reader. Then you can see that the host group 40 is these two nodes, right? They are not an active writer, they are backup nodes, right? Because they were shunned. Then for performance monitoring, right, you can look at the DB code. So these are test tables, right? Test database, right? So you can see the largest database, you can see the table count rows, the data size, index size. You can see the data DB status. You can see the data the DB variables, the connection of the databases. Then you can also look at the query monitor, right? So query monitor, like we talked about, can evaluate this is a demo test data. So you can see the highest queries, right? It's sort of okay, total execution time. So the query counts, and you see the respective DBs, right? That these queries, the respective DBs that these queries are set to. Yeah, you can also update the settings. You can also go to the advisors section, right? Advisors is one of the key features I talked about. So you see a lot of advisors. So green obviously means that everything is good, status is okay. Then you see yellow, which is like kind of like a warning status. So we can see this warning, right? The warning says table access without using index. See the specific instance that this warning is talked about, right? The specific database node, and we can see the justification, right? And everything you need to understand. Okay, this table has been queried without using this index. You see that this is the database, right? With a total of 7,000 IO operations, right? And it gives you the exact number of reads, the exact number of writes, and the exact number of deletes, right? And you can see this for and several other types of advisors, right? Say check DB accounts without a password. Oh, okay, if there's excessive CPU usage, it shows you that, okay, there is an excessive CPU usage. This is something you need to look at, right? And other advisors, and the good thing is you can also customize these advisors, right? So if I go here to manage, I can go to script, and I can also like make changes, right, to CPU usage. So now for this, right, this is written in the cluster control domain specific language, right? It's similar to JavaScript and easy for developers that have development experience. They can easily understand this, right, and make changes. So now I see, okay, this is a variable with threshold 1 in 90. So I can change this to, okay, let's say two, and let's compile and run and see what happens. So I see, okay, then I get, from the previous dashboard, I saw that CPU usage was okay. But now seeing the threshold, right, was set to 9, I see that I get the prompt that excessive CPU usage, CPU usage has been high, right? And I can also, let me edit this back to 90. I can see now that this is a new status, right? An alarm and say, okay, CPU usage is okay. So depending on your needs, right? Depending on what is the threshold for you, you can actually like edit advisors, edit your the configurations for your clusters, right? For your load balancers, like you can see here, max scale for your different DBs and dig specific usage. Let's look into that. You can edit that from your needs, right? So now let's look at let's look at alarms, right? So I can go to the alarm tab. So I see that there's no alarm here, right? So in order for us to get an alarm, let's simulate a long running query, right? So I go to the nodes from cluster control. I can SSH directly into the nodes, so I don't have to go to my server provider or like a cloud provider. So I can SSH into this primary node, right? So let me uh, let me log in. Then log into my SQL, enter the password. So let me run is sleep query, right? Let me run the test sleep query. So yes, we have this query. So I go back to the cluster control dashboard and just wait for a few seconds, right? And I will see that the alarm pops up. So after a few seconds, right, you see that an alarm pops up, right? Okay, the title long running query, right? The warning, what category is it, right? On DB performance. So you can look in more into the long running query, right? And you can see via the info the exact query that I ran, and that shows you like any operations, right? You get a full overview on like what actually happened, right? And the recommendation is to tune the query, right? So this is just a sleep, right? After 6 seconds, it stops. So I can choose to mute this query. I can ignore this query, and the notification goes away, right? And I muted it, so because I don't want to worry about this. Is a demo environment, right? Now, let me show you how cluster control handles fault detection. So I'll go into the PostgreSQL node, right? So there's no alarm here. So I'll go into the node. So you see there's one primary and there's a replica, right? So what I want to do, right? So in this, my cluster control for this node, I have auto recovery turned on, right? So cluster auto recovery, node auto recovery. So I can choose to turn them off, right? So I can choose to turn them off, but I want them on for this. So I can, let me say, okay, let me stop this node, right? My primary node, right? So I stop the node. I want to force a stop, right? Force a stop. So the jobs gets created. I see. I can see that the job gets created. I can go and see that, okay, stop node, the new job is created. You can see as the job, right, is running, and I see restoring auto recovery true. The settings is true, right? So I go back to the node, right? See the node was shut. I shut down the node. I get an alarm that cluster failure, critical, cluster recovery is needed, right? After a few minutes, you see that my then replica node, right, became a primary, right? So it happens fast, and let's go look at the logs, right? So you see that, okay, recovering the master as all hosts are down. So cluster control automatically recovers the node, right? It recovers the node and starts the node again, right? And here you see from it being failed, my cluster from cluster failure, you see the cluster failure alarm is gone. The cluster is back up and running, right? And the initial replica node, right, became a primary, and the primary became the replica. Now that we've covered most of the parts, right? We've covered fault detection, we've covered query monitoring, performance monitoring, we've looked at all the dashboards that cluster control provides you, and cluster control's recovery features, right? And how you can schedule maintenance. So now, like, let's look at activity center. So while doing all this, right, we looked at the alarms, logged, and jobs, right? So that makes up the activity center. So we can go to the activity center. See, currently there's no alarm, right? There's no alarm because, right, there's nothing, there's no issue right now. And if we want to simulate again, right, like we saw, we see another alarm pop up. But we can also view all the jobs, right, with respect to each cluster. So you can see, let me just zoom in a bit. You can see the title of each job. You stopped the node, right? There was the node recovery, backups that previously created, right? And we can also look at audit logs, right? That shows like who did what, right? So you have a cluster control environment. It's not only managed by one person, right? So you see that who did what, which user did what. So now this is it's only one user I've used, right? So you can only see admin. But if there's another user, right, you can all easily create users, right? You can easily create a user with cluster control. As I create a new user, create a team, assign the user to a team. I can also implement LDAP, organizations already Active Directory, right? So you don't need new credentials to access cluster control. So it kind of just what like says the word kind of just slots into like an organization security security regulations, right, and compliance. Can set your make LDAP settings and map LDAP group with respect to each team, right? Then, but back to activity center, right? So that's what a cluster will give you to see what is happening in a cluster, right? And also to perform actions. And also operational reports, right? So yeah, I've already created some operational reports. So let me create another one to show you how cluster control can help you like see what happens with your cluster, right? So I can select, okay, let me select the Postgres cluster. Then I just say database availability report. I can put an email for a recipient. Okay, I can say for 3 days ago, right? They change. So I can create this report, and within a few seconds, the report is created. Then I can view this report, right? And it gets open in a new page. I can say, okay, what's the availability of this reports of this my Postgres cluster? So 99.98%, right? And the uptime, was there any downtime? There was no downtime. But you remember, I simulated a cluster going down, right? A node rather, I simulated a node going down, right? But then again, you see there was 0 minutes downtime because of cluster control auto recovery feature. Then you can also create more operational reports, different types of operational reports, right? Schema changes, database groups, capacity reports, standard system reports, just like give you overview of your system, like CPU and usage, right? And let's look at let's also backup reports and any kind of reports, right? So I can create. Okay, let me create a backup report for the the Galera cluster. So I create that, I can view it. So you see, okay, the backup was completed. So you see detailed overview, right, of all the backups, the backup size, storage location. I'll store this backup in my in the roots in the server, right? In the node, right? But then again, you can also store your backup on AWS, and you also see the AWS or other clouds. You also see the location of the backups, right? When the backup is created, you can create verifiable backups, right? And see backup retention, right? The backup retention is 31 days, and this gives you an understanding of what's happening in the cluster, right? What happened before, what's happening now, and that gives you the satisfaction of that. Okay, your cluster is up now, right? And it's well performing. And if anything happens, you can easily react, right? It's automated reaction, and you can easily react manually if need be, right? You see, I was able to easily go into a node, right? And SSH into a node directly from the cluster control environment, right? So that is pretty helpful in case of some emergency situation. I can now perform actions, right? So now you see how cluster control can help you simplify database troubleshooting, right? And see what's happening in your cluster in real time, and also like perform actions immediately, and how for you to have a well performing and highly available database. So now we're going to look at who uses cluster control for observability. So cluster control is trusted by a lot of organizations, some you know and some you don't. So we're just going to look at two examples, right? Two case studies for organizations that use cluster control. Specifically, they adopted cluster control majorly for like observability and monitoring. So the first is Westpay. So they had a challenge while growing in the market. Westpay is a Swedish fintech company, right? They were not able to know what's going on in their cluster, right? They spend a lot of time tweaking and manually making changes, right? And manual customization, which manual customization can lead to key person dependence, right? So let's say the person that did those tweaks and those changes move on from the company, or like something happens, the person is sick at a particular time, right? That key person's dependence is something that every organization tries to avoid and should avoid. And cluster control, when WSP adopted cluster control, so this is the feedback from the WSP CTO, they were able to ensure highest possible uptime, right? Because they knew what was happening in their database. When they knew when their database they knew when log queries were occurring, they knew when the database was growing exponentially and what to do. They knew when the node was down, and there was auto recovery and all this. So you can read more about the case study there by scanning this QR code. We also have another example with Holiday Pirates, right? Managing and scaling their database was a challenge for them, right? And they needed a solution that gives them that holistic view, right? That single pane of glass and full understanding of what's happening and being able to take action. And now they are notified of the status of their database, and they can take corrective and preventive measures, right? So like you saw in the demo, cluster control has you see some notifications, some alarms are like warnings. They have the red obviously, so like failure, right? Very critical alarm, right? We didn't simulate that in the demo, but yeah, very critical alarms, and you have green for status all right. So I can get these notifications on Slack, integrate these notifications, these alarms and notifications to any incident management tool you use, right? You can read more about this case study by scanning this QR code. Then that is the end of my talk. And thank you very much for listening. And I hope this talk was interesting and insightful. And if you're looking to like adopt cluster control, you can easily like reach out to me. On the talk description, you can see my socials on LinkedIn and also on Twitter. And also we host at several nights, we host the Sovereign DBAS podcast. So Sovereign DBAS, like I mentioned earlier, enabling companies to take control of their data, right? So a community of individuals from different companies that prioritize data sovereignty, right? Having control, not just data sovereignty on the basis of location of where your data is, right? Or control over the entire data stack, right? Your infrastructure, the tooling around your database. So there are so many episodes. This is a recent episode on using or on open source cloud, right? So you can check it out on Spotify, on YouTube, at several nights. And you can always reach out to me. I'm always active on social media. And yeah, and I hope this was a great talk and was interesting for you to listen. Do have a great rest of the observability, Conf42 observability.